Well, it's time for part two, and actually, the final episode of Open Bar, when we're going to be going through what happened with the splintering of the manosphere from the 21 convention. Let's get into it.
Strong and wild, we rise up high. Conquer fears, won't let them reside. Heartbeats pound as we take the dive. Living now feels so alive. Heart steel veins glowing bright. Fitness gone in the dead of night. Fading game, we got the sight. Crushing finance, career out of sight. Men of now, we own it true. Breaking chains, just me and you. Success stories everywhere. Living life beyond compare.
All right, gentlemen and ladies as well. This is gonna be a fun one. We've been doing this open bar series where it just has been casual talk about what has gone on in the Manosphere, the Red Pill, this entire space, the PUA space, and how we ended up where we are today. And today is going to be the final episode of that. I mean, we may have supplementals in the future, but this is going to be the final episode of where everything really splintered. We talked about how the 21 Con was one of the most beautiful things that had happened to this space, where it brought people together for the first time. Instead of being keyboard warriors or living on Reddit or different forums, they actually got to see the people that they were hearing about, see the people that they were learning from, see others on the same mission that they were on. And what we're going to talk about today is how things started to splinter and why it brought us to where we are today. So, without further ado, I want to bring on my very, very fantastic friends here. We have Kevin. How are you doing?
Evening, sir. I'm doing well. Wondering about my fellow Floridians out down there getting ready for another storm to come through. My parents are actually in the way, so hopefully everything turns out well. They're true Floridians. I trust my stepdad that he's going to keep my mom safe. But other than that, man, I'm doing great. It's kind of bittersweet to end this series on this note, but it's necessary to put out where we are and where we want to go.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to put it. Josh, Renegade Wingman, how you doing?
Good. And yeah, to Kevin's point, definitely keeping everybody on the East Coast and the South and the storm fronts, and our thoughts and prayers for sure. Definitely have quite a few people that I know personally have been affected by a lot of the storms and everything. So hopefully everyone will be better off than this for this round. But outside of that, just trying to stay productive and happy to be here discussing with you guys.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Yeah. No, it's crazy. It's crazy with that entire storm that came through, and then immediately afterwards we got the massive one. It looks like it's not going to be too bad coming into Tampa now. It seems like it's slowing down, but you never know. I mean, it picks up, it picks down, and it'll be interesting. But anyways, today's topic. I know we talked about the 21 convention last time. And it definitely had some impacts. I think that it had greater impacts, like better, like more beneficial impacts than negative ones. But there was a falling off point. And I believe it was what? Josh, you're probably better at this than I am. 2017?
Yeah, I believe it was the 2017, where it was like the 2016 one was the penultimate. Everyone is united and we're all together. And then after the following year, that one, which I believe was that 2017, that's where everything just began to completely fracture apart and has given rise to where things are today.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm going to put it forward. I think that it had to do with ego. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but what I saw from everything is if you have a bunch of independent people running their own businesses with their own self-interest and you pull them all together, and then when you have all these big egos in a room, it's very difficult to manage. And I think that that's what went wrong with everything, quite honestly. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I know for me, this is just my personal opinion. When the space really gained steam is when all men really had to rely on is blogs and reading and educating themselves. And then, social media grew, and then it went to YouTube. You started seeing faces with names from behind the people that were writing these blogs. And then it went all the way to a convention where you've got the who's who at the time. They're speaking, and all with the same goal is to help young men, but then also wanting to grow their own particular brand. And when you've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen, bad things can happen.
I think that's
Yeah,
a really good point.
That is a
Like,
great.
yeah,
I
go ahead.
kind of agree with that sentiment as well. Is that especially guys, we tend to be naturally like competitive. So once you start getting the who's who of any particular space or industry all together, there is going to be some natural level of competition that arises. But I would also say, yeah, to your point, Huds, there definitely was probably a little bit of ego that went into play, whether it's, some people felt, unintentionally slighted, or some people felt that they deserved a little bit more of the credit or more of, the attention or whatever. So you kind of mix a little bit of that, this is the first time everyone's coming together, but this is also the first time that, everyone's really helping everyone get magnified attention. And so everyone's following start boosting up all their, traffic to their blogs or socials or whatever starts flooding through. So it starts, guys start getting a little bit more thinking about, okay, well, how can I capitalize the most on this, right? And absolutely, I don't disagree that you shouldn't capitalize on things, but also at the same time, when everyone's trying to come into one direction, and then suddenly you start throwing, well, now guys are either trying to fully make a living off of this, or they have been dependent on making a living off of this, and now they're seeing an increase. Suddenly self-interest really starts arising and starts pulling things apart, which is unfortunate to see sometimes.
Absolutely. And I think it's very interesting. I know I've dealt with it myself when I've been working with certain other coaches and we may get into a project together. And then if one person's results are higher than the others, like let's say I'm selling something for $100 and I sell to 10 people. Well, I just made $1,000. And maybe you're selling something for $100 and you only sell 2 people. Well, we both did this same thing, but I made 5 times as much as you. That leads to some of that jealousy and that inner, I guess they call it infighting, because that's really what seemed to happen with this. Is that once everybody was brought together, well, yeah, this could be their livelihood. For some people, it is. And if they're going to get certain clients taken away by other people, not necessarily taken away, but maybe exposed to something else that would have lost you a sale that you could have gained if you engaged with that person one-on-one. Like, those are the crazy hamster wheels that go on in the brain. And I think that that's quite honestly what happened.
Yeah. And it's just, again, everyone, it's so interesting, like how quickly things can change and shift, right? Where it's like one year, everyone is kind of on the same vision, right? And everybody is really working in a cohesive direction to elevate that vision. And so it just was a thing that, helped a lot of folks. And then the following year, a lot of folks were actually helped out the following year. Again, the convention itself was actually quite good and quite potent and even bigger than the year before. But it was the aftermath and everything that happened afterwards internally that really drove a wedge in a lot of different directions. So that fractured people apart, which was really left a lot of people with their head scratched, because they're like, all right, well, everything seemed like it was great, and it was a great event where it seemed like we were even more on the same wavelength. And then, you know, seeing the after effects, you know, a few months very quickly after, it's like, oh, why are, you know, these people not talking anymore when they were just like hosting a joint session? Or, you know, why are these people over here like having to say this about this other person? So it just got to, you know, a point where it was really unfortunate where, you know, I feel a lot of the guys that were there and were supporting and were the target audience to get stuff you know, out of this were a little bit let down in a certain sense, because again, it's like, you know, the dream team is there and it's like, all right, cool, everything's working together. But now it's like, oh, everyone can't work together. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. You know, like you said, Huds and Josh, you know, when monetary gain is involved, that's a recipe for destruction, because I'm gonna call it greed, but of course everybody wants to make as much as they can. And unfortunately, instead of working together, I'm not naming names or choosing sides, but there was some backstabbing that happened. If you hear one person say their side and you hear another person say their side, who knows? Because there's one big thing in the middle is the truth of what really happened. And to your point, Josh, is, you know, a lot of guys that were getting very good value out of this actually, you know, ended up out by themselves, because here they thought they found some people that they could learn from and get good advice, good influence, that kind of stuff. And then when you see it implode, it can really disenfranchise the target audience that's what they were there in the first place. So I think, you know, that was a big hit to the space and the manosphere as it was gaining traction. You know, just like anything else, though, if you start gaining traction, you're going to have hate. You see that a lot. A lot of people that don't understand it, that make fun of it, or have a wrong impression of what the manosphere, the red pill, whatever you want to call it. There's going to be some naysayers out there and the people that will try to tear it down. And I think some people took that to the extreme. And when they did, some of the people that were supposed to be leaders in the space, their claws came out, they fought back too hard, and then that's where there was a disconnect.
Yeah, and another interesting note, though, too, it's when the fracturing started happening, it's very interesting. It's kind of, I guess, a good little note for the future is that, you know, the tribes formed really quickly, where it's like, okay, the folks that like, all right, we like this guy. Okay, now we really are doubling down on this guy, right? And like, we like this other guy. So those guys over there are like, all right, we're really doubling down on being in this guy's camp, right? So just, it was really wild to see how, you know, everybody who was kind of on team everyone, right, one year, shortly thereafter, when it came to a bit of fracturing, everyone doubled down. And like some guys, yeah, a lot of guys definitely got kind of left out in the cold, confused, but there were definitely a lot of guys that, you know, flooded directly to, this is my camp and we're staying in this camp and we're now against the other camp. So it's I guess a good little cautionary tale for human nature in there.
I think that's a great point. And it's funny because today, you know, I love Legos. So today we had a release. It's like a limited release that they do through Bricklink, and you can only get the set one time only. Now I didn't get the castle. Instead, I got the seaport, and I think it's going to be beautiful. I'm so excited for it, but I won't get it for like 6 months. This is all like custom stuff. But that's just like, now I have completely lost my train of thought because now I'm thinking about all the Legos I've looked at today and I've been building. I'm building a Disney train right now, and I just finished the Ghostbusters one. God damn it. But when you're talking about camps, when I'm talking about the camps of taking one side, that was weird. That was weird when this entire thing splintered. I know we had talked about before that there was Red Man Group. Red Man Group, dude, I loved listening to that every weekend, and that was free. I didn't have to pay for anything. I got to listen to a panel of guys, experts, and they were diving into a bunch of topics that I really wanted advice on, and I got to get a multitude of experiences. And then when this splintering happened, I believe is because of big egos kind of like knocking against each other. And then some of these people have a larger interest in it than others because it's their livelihood. Well, boom, everything separates apart, and then everybody establishes their own camp. And so Red Man Group essentially became what Rule Zero, and Rule Zero was great for a while. Rolo was leading the charge on that, but Rolo has left Rule Zero, and he has not been on for months. I don't know if he will ever return. And it's just interesting how everybody needs to be in control, but isn't able to take a step back and understand why it's so powerful to move together as a unit, especially when, and this is not knocking or judging Rolo or Anthony or anybody else in this space, but we do better together than we do apart. So if you're going to try and do things your way and push out anybody who thinks differently, well, then you can't grow. I firmly believe that. And that's what I saw in that splintering that occurred when there was a lot of infighting that occurred. That everybody kind of went in their own direction, and like they took their stake, they put it in the ground. This is my land. I don't know how you guys think about that, but that's kind of how I viewed it. It was kind of like, this is mine. This is how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, and it's interesting how everyone sort of evolved individually afterwards too, right? So you started to see guys definitely, especially if you look at a lot of the content people were putting out in around like the 2018, 2019, before 2020 era. A lot of guys were putting out content that was more in reaction to other people's stuff versus staying on their core targeted message of like, hey, here's who I am, what I'm about, here's what we do. So there's definitely a bit of that residual like back and forth, which I guess, hey, sometimes, drama sells, so that can work out well. That could be definitely a good effective strategy. But it was definitely interesting just to see how that, like you said before, like, the clause like kind of came out. And to your point, I do definitely agree that, content creators were definitely way better when they were all like working well together. But, sometimes there's personal issues that, people unfortunately can't resolve. So that's a little bit of a, microcosm for, I guess, the larger world as a whole. But that's what also kind of gave rise to where things are and where they are today, is because, there was that more unified central hub repository, and then that fractured out. And so from that fracturing, there were some other, big names and faces that did seize the opportunity and come out and really, make an established kind of a name for themselves in it. But, it's just understanding that everything was there and it looked like, okay, we had all the pieces in place. We're all good to go. The airplane is ready to fly and take off and go straight to altitude. It was definitely a interesting, no one would have foreseen that, only a few years later, the space would be in a drastically different position than it was at that point in time.
Yeah, it's, the competition. I get that. As men, we're naturally competitive. But it seemed like to me that, there were some very strong allegations from a lot of people against other people. But it seemed like the purpose was set aside for the competition. And it reminded me of modern day politics, where it's not about me coming up and telling you why I'm going to be the best candidate. I'm going to come up and tell you why they're not. And it fucking pisses me off, even in politics. But to me, that's not the way to go about it. If you've got some competition out there, you make yourself better to be better than the other person, if that's how it has to be. But you don't try to tear that other person down to make you look better. And that's what I saw a lot of that was going on. Instead of building your purpose, building your brand, bettering your brand, it was all about tearing the other person down. And to me, that's fucked up.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I saw some of the stuff, and there's so many back and forths, and we don't need to get into it. But there was just a bunch of these guys that you view as leaders, essentially pointing fingers. Like, you guys ever seen that Spider-Man meme where it's like, that's literally what was going on at this time. everybody was pointing fingers at everybody else as betraying everybody else, and it was just a mess. It was a mess, and it they made the joke for a while, and I really do stand by it, that the manosphere can be like Mean Girls. It can, and it's just silly. Like, why? And then if you're going to treat it like Mean Girls, the way I look at it is that you're treating it that way because you don't take it seriously. I know that us at the Men of Now and everything that we do it because we care about people. We want everybody to live their best life possible. We don't care about getting tons of money, selling a bunch of courses, selling a bunch of memberships, things like it. It doesn't matter. That's not the purpose. And so you have to look at people's purpose. And I think that this was like a glaring time where it really showed that there were a lot of people here not for the right reasons, which is passion, but actually just here for monetary incentive.
The real tragedy is the fact that it's like no one creator's ideas alone are going to be enough to cover the gambit. But when you have everybody else's ideas exchanging and working together and compiling and building on each other, that's what the true magic was. What is that? It's like, okay, cool. You have like Rolo talking about this stuff over here. And then you have, Rich Cooper talking about this stuff over here. That fits extremely well with what Anthony Johnson was talking about over here on this side. And then you have, Donovan Sharp talking about this over here. So it just, a lot of the broader ideas really work to put together a very complete picture. And so then there was a massive sort of fragmenting of that picture where everyone suddenly said, no, I'm going to zone in on just this one little thing and this one little piece right here, which, then kind of gave rise to the space as we see it today and where we are today. So it's, I think it's the biggest tragedy is for a while, people lost sight of what the completed picture could look like. And yeah, everyone had their little individual nuances, but there was a really nice picture that was being painted.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think you brought up something that clicked with me, Alex. Like they're all leaders, right? Well, that's what they were lacking is one leader that could bring everybody together, that could squash the beefs before they got out of hand, that could keep everybody, almost laser focused on the goal, which was helping other men and helping other people achieve the things they want to achieve in their life that they can't do on their own. And without having that one leader that could bring everybody together or keep everybody together, I think that played a big role in it. Because when you get a bunch of alphas in the room, yeah, there's going to be some animosities and there's going to be some competition, but you've got to keep your eye on what you're really there for, and that's to help people. And if you're doing it well, all that other stuff, fame, if you're looking for it, clout, if you're looking for it, money, if you're looking for it, it will come along with it, as long as your purpose and your brand is on point and your brand keeps bettering itself.
Yeah, very, very, very well said there. I could not agree more with that.
You got my brain going like 1,000 miles a minute on that. It really is. It's so true. It's like, understand what you're there for.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing for us, as we get Men of Now going, we've got a lot of great allies out there in the space still that we work with, is we can learn from other people's mistakes and not make them again, and stick to the game plan. And that is to give men the aha moment that I love giving men, whether it be financial, whether it be with dating, whether it be with just leveling up at work. When you can give another man that aha moment, that's, to me, that's better than driving a fucking brand new Corvette.
That's all pretty awesome. But to your point, yes, that aha moment is definitely there. I think that's a very well put the way that you said it, because we all know a bunch of different guys in the space, especially from back then and now, and we all have good relationships with everybody, even guys that wouldn't be in the same room together, right? And it's like, hey, well, we know you both, and you're both been cool to us, so hey, we're good over here. But I think that's, to your point, Kevin, is staying focused on really being able to provide that, not only that aha moment, but just a place where not only guys get the encouragement that they need, but also just the tools and resources and the guidance to make it whatever it is their own. So, I mean, that's a large reason why I'm excited to be, in Men of Now and doing the work that we're doing here. So, and not to turn into a commercial for Men of Now, but just saying, like, it's, been very cool to take a lot of the different ideas and teachings and then just be able to relay that to the other guys in the groups, how they've, taken a lot of that stuff individually on themselves and have really made it their own and are coming into their own and making their own strides. So that's definitely been a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, a huge shout out to Nomi, because I know you're going to listen to this back. Dude, you fucking amaze me every single day with the new stuff that you do. And it's amazing how you just take all the information from so many different people and you just make it happen. It really is. It's phenomenal. And that's what I'm just like so excited about for the future. I will announce to everybody that at this time, the Men of Now community is closed. We are at full enrollment. We will be expanding, but for right now, stay tuned to see a link in the future where you can get the alert when it opens up again. It's not going to be for a little while, because this is an exclusive club. It really is. So keep a lookout for that. But oh my God, dude, I just think back to some of the conversations we've had with the members and like how they've taken basic ideas and transformed it into just this like crazy way of thinking that just like absolutely slaughters the problem that they were having in their life. It's great.
Yeah, and it's cool too because again, everyone kind of comes to these different realizations or gets involved through different some way or the other. But a lot of guys that are out there and you talk to and you say like, hey, have you heard about this type of content or this type of stuff? A lot of guys are just like, I'm just really like kind of turned off around it because there's just a massive sort of negative sentiment out there. That's like the kind of unfortunate thing and then it's like, well, let me sit you down and walk you through a little bit of the history of it because it wasn't always like this. It was really, really like about positivity and there really, really was about self-actualization. And then, we got to a certain fracturing where the comet hit and just kind of, created that crater that threw up all the dust in the air, started killing off a lot of stuff. So it's, important for a lot of guys today, especially guys that are brand new to this type of space for content or at least been semi-familiar with it. And, just the sentiment out there is, from what I've seen, is that, a lot of guys are just kind of tired of the sort of negative sentiment, whether it's, people that have like beefs with other people or the, idea that, wow, just everything's so negative. So what's the point of even trying? Like, we, firmly believe that, there was a very positive intentions and positive ideas that founded this whole thing that really had a nice positive effect and has helped a lot of people. So, getting back to that core of like, hey, this is a very positive thing that can be a very positive influence and force to not only better your own life, but the lives of other people around you. That's really what we're, been striving to kind of get back to. So, that's
what was the purpose? Hold on. What was the purpose? If we think back to the very first thing we talked about in this series, which is PUA. What was the purpose of PUA being put out there?
So to help guys figure out how to just talk to women.
To help the guys who couldn't get laid.
Or at least get a phone number. Or at least have the confidence to go up and talk to a woman. Which
to develop social skills.
Yeah, social skills.
Or to, turn all negative interactions they were having into positive interactions, right?
Mm.
Exactly. And that's what we're missing. That's what we're missing today. And that's what's so important about what we're doing versus what we have out there today. Because a lot of the stuff that we have out there today, no knock on Myron and no knock on Fresh. But with that type of content, all you're doing is you're circulating that, all women act this way. All women act poorly. Yeah. It's reinforcing a negative mindset instead of focusing on the positive mindset or aspect of it. So if you start to think about it a little bit differently, and that's exactly what this was all about, is like, if you do this, you get positive result. Okay, like follow that logic tree, and then boom, you get the results that you want. And that's what we focus about. Not all of us, like nobody fits, like, God damn. Now I'm thinking about my pediatrician when I was little. You know how they had those little cube things where you put like the triangle in the thing, and then you had the square, and then you had the circle, and then if you try and put the square into the circle, it's not going to work, and it helps you learn shapes. That's exactly what it is. It's understanding like, okay, like how do I fit into certain molds, and then from there, how do I like move it forward? If you just assume that, okay, because I'm trying to put this shape into that thing and it's not working, it's because that thing's bad. It's like, no, it's not because that thing's bad. It's because it doesn't fit there. And then you readjust. So I think that that's what was lost, and it became more entertainment, I guess, instead of it became entertainment and then internet marketing, sales, money to people instead of what the actual purpose was. And really,
Yeah.
all we focus on is the actual purpose.
Yeah, and it became a little bit of that, entertainment, like at the cost and the expense of the positive ideals I can get out of it, right? So again, it's like what I'd say about, again, no knock on the Freshman Fit crew on Byron or Walter or whatever, because they have some spectacular content on there with a lot of great, amazing coaches. But then on the other side, they also have the total Jerry Springer side of it, right? Which
Yeah.
I get it, right? It gets the views and all that other stuff. So, if you're only seeing the Jerry Springer side of the equation, you're just missing so much of the enriching content in there that's super positive, and really helps push you in a more positive, constructive direction. So that's been the real reason why we wanted to document sort of this whole history of the space, is understanding like, well, how did we get here? Where this space has been known as a slightly entertaining misnomer that is got a large degree of Jerry Springer factor, not just from one content creator group, but from a lot of different content creator groups, right? So it's documenting how it didn't always start out this way to where it is now, so that way we can kind of cycle through back to that overarching message and sentiment of like, hey, there's a great positive way to not only better your own life but also enrich the lives of others that are around you. Because when you get a little too much into the Jerry Springer weeds, you really get a more nihilistic sense around things. Where now, instead of viewing it as like, hey, men and women, we're totally designed to work together and we're amazing together and we can do a lot of great things and there's a lot of great experiences we can provide for each other, to now we're at odds against each other because they only want to take from us, and we have to hoard all of our resources away so that way they can't get them. Then it's we're not in a healthy place, I would say. So that's a large reason why I've been really happy to dive into this topic with you guys, because those of us that have been around for a little bit saw what sparked it, and more importantly, understand that sort of original sentiment that was there and was permeating out. So for a lot of the people that are newer to the space or see where things are currently, just understand that there still is all of that positive stuff on that side of the coin. It just may not be fully face up right now. So with your help, we can flip that coin back over to the positive side.
It's a hell of a lot harder right now to find that stuff. I have to say.
Yeah, well, a lot of the guys don't know where to look because, if you get your algorithm and all you're getting is Fresh and Fit After Dark, the Jerry Springer aspect, that's all you see. But what I noticed with that, I mean, you watch 3 episodes or you just watch a little bit of it and you've seen them all, just like Jerry Springer. If you saw a couple episodes, you know what happens. The girl comes out, she's cheating on her man, so the other girl comes out and they fight. So after you watch a couple episodes, it's all the same. And so then you lose interest. But to Josh's point, Red Pill today is nothing what Red Pill meant 5 years ago. The Red Pill of 5 years ago of a man looking at things realistically, not the fantasy Disney world, a man looking on leveling up himself, bettering himself, to stay on his mission, to stay on his purpose, and not to let women, pussy, whatever you want to call it, distract them and try to keep men on that focus, is not what the Red Pill is looked at as today. The Red Pill is actually looked at as a very negative thing nowadays.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I actually want to share something with you guys because this is one of the fallout types of things, and this is going back to what I was talking about ego. That I think that everybody's egos became too big. we lost sight of what it really is, and there is a negative connotation nowadays on this entire space when it was just based on social psychology. That's really what it is. And like, hey, I get into fights with people about this all the time. I got in fights with Rolo. I've gotten in fights with some of my other buddies about this because they always say, no, it's a praxeology. Well, yeah, that's a subsect of the understanding of psychology. Like, I'm not getting that. I'm not doing that. But it's interesting that from this, everybody seemed to get some crazy egos. I won't name any names outside of Anthony. I will use you here. Don't hate me for it, but I gotta have the fact that you self-proclaimed yourself as the president of the manosphere, which I thought was kind of interesting. You may have been the integrator of the manosphere, but you certainly were not the president. And if you were the president, that's a very small state because everybody seemed to jump away. So I want to share this video that he had put out, and this is where I think that the egos went a little too heavy, because I didn't just see this from Anthony. I saw this from a lot of others as well, where it was better than, not working with, not equal to. And when I say equal to, I mean like on the same level. Like we both have different skills. Maybe your skill for this is here and mine's here, maybe reverse, but together we can give the information necessary for somebody. It just seemed like everybody thought they were up here, and that's not how it works. So I'm going to share this one here. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on screen. I'm going to go full screen for it.
Welcome back to Good Morning Britain. We are finding out how men can make women great again because in Orlando, Florida, is a man charging almost $1,000.
Anthony Dream Johnson, who says he wants to abolish feminism and make women great again.
In Orlando, Florida, that's going to be the scene of the crime.
21 studios, okay? They are pretty much the Avengers of the manosphere.
First and foremost, shout out to 21 Studios.
So this convention is put on by a company called 21 Studios, and they have this whole convention every year called the 21 Convention, where it's just teaching men how to be better.
Women are queuing up to pay nearly $1,000 to have a man like Anthony tell them how to be women.
It's mansplaining palooza.
Anthony Dream Johnson. That's really his name. He's the founder of the convention.
Like yourself and like Anthony Johnson, president.
The first president of the manosphere.
President of the manosphere.
You're protecting the sphere in a way that not enough people give you credit for.
Thanks, man.
And I really mean that, because if you didn't protect the sphere at all, it would just be a complete shit show. That's why you're the president, right?
You gotta be presidential.
You gotta be presidential.
And that guy's name was Anthony the Dream Johnson, the president of the f***ing manosphere. There's only one guy in the manosphere.
Yeah, you're a cheat, Mr. President. You're f***ing done, dude. That's all there is to it. All in favor, say aye.
Excuse me, I'm mansplaining here. Vote Dream 2022 and make the manosphere great again. I'm Anthony Dream Johnson, and I approve this message.
Can you imagine the ego to put out something like that? To go ahead and say, you know what, I'm in charge of the whole thing. I make the decisions. I am the president. And it's funny because in that commercial, and I don't know if some of this is just, it probably is. But in that, so Philion's a comedian. Curtis Connor's a comedian. I've watched both of the videos that feature this, and they are making fun of it. And then I know Torsha as well, and Torsha's making fun of it. So why are you sound biting certain things that are making fun of you in sarcastic statements to make it sound like it's a good thing? Like, why? What type of ego trip is that? That's just my 2 cents on it. And I really thought that with everything that went on at the end of like personal disagreements that everybody had with one another, a lot of people just kind of like shot off. It's almost like you imagine like sci-fi movies and you have a bunch of shuttles shooting out in all different directions. Or like have you guys seen Solar Opposites on Hulu? Yep. So they're shooting out in all different directions until they land on a certain planet. That's kind of what happened. the breaking point occurred, and then everybody just shot out into their own world.
Yeah, and it's like, if you compare that video to like, a video, a lot of the videos actually that he's done or promotions that he's put out, years prior, like the 2016, 2015, like 2017 timeframe, drastically different sentiment, drastically different everything. So it's really interesting. And again, we're not, trying to single one guy out and pick on him. This is just one example because, a lot of people in the space are guilty of just this type of hyperbole. So it's just, getting away from the positive sentiment out of it, because now you're either trying to make it solely about, you and your own greatness, or you're, making a statement that isn't really reflecting on, your ideas in the best light, where it's like, okay, like, you're some, 18-year-old kid that just got on, have no frame of context for everything, but I really need help. And I come across this and I'm going to see this and go like, all right, that's going to resonate with me. That's who I need to, really be involved in, be involved with, or, the rabbit hole I need to go down. It gets unfortunate, because if you were to remove all of that stuff that was on top of it and actually get to like the core ideology that's in there, there's a lot of really amazing stuff that could really, really help that individual out. But you're going to turn that person off completely, and they're not going to be able to take you very, very seriously. So, that's just the unfortunate state of where a lot of the space is right now, is that there's so many good and great ideas out there, but the people who really need it the most, they aren't being reached, and they're being turned off and turned away from a lot of stuff that actually could really help them, could really benefit them. Because again, it's, being more overly sensationalized, and especially more sensationalized to drive to more of an individual's take on things, versus looking at, hey, here's just something that can really, really help you and be a good benefit for you.
Yeah,
I got a funny one for you guys. Hold on.
Back to the original thing when it comes to,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, with Johnson, I'm not even going to pretend and know what I think was going through his head when he put out something like that, but it just, there's a lot of things that, like we've talked about pretty much all night, that ego, greed, clout, that's, it's almost not people's fault when that happens. When we grow up, we look up to movie stars and rock stars and that kind of stuff. So when we start getting a little clout, some people buy into it too much, and they want to take it up a notch, and then it ends up sending the wrong message. We have a commenter that we're not going to post, but saying thinks the red pill is dead. And I'm going to tell you, buddy, I agree with you, but I think the red pill has evolved, and it's evolving into something better, and don't have a label for it, don't have a name for it yet, but I like where it's going, because now people are starting to get away from basically black pill, like we talked about earlier. If you just watch too much of one person's content, all women are bad, all women are going to cheat on you, all women just want you for your money, and you're going to basically take yourself out of the market, because every time you look at a woman, you automatically hate her. And I don't think that's very productive for any man. I don't know about how you guys feel about it, but as far as saying the red pill is dead, I think in a sense, but what we talked about earlier, red pill now is not what red pill was 5 years ago. And so it is slowly dying, but I would like to think that it's evolving into something better, that basically it imploded too much. So now the people that are still out to help people, they're learning from that mistake.
Drowned.
We're not going to repeat it. We're not going to repeat that shit.
Yeah, we're right now. That's the issue, is that we are drowned right now. We can't. A lot of people didn't even hear from us, because there's so many other bad actors in the space, whether it be a cash grab or something else. Chris, shout out to you. Appreciate you, brother. That's 100% true. I do think it's dead. And unfortunately, we do not have something else right now to call it by, or what to move along. And that's a shame. I was just talking about it today, and I don't mean to get political, but I just was thinking about it today because I watched, like, think about how ridiculous this is, guys. Okay. So today, Kamala Harris has, well, hold on. Yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was, she had an interview with Call Her Daddy. You guys know what that podcast is, right?
Oh,
I had
yeah.
never heard of it till they said that she went on it, but I might check it out now just to see what kind of horse shit it is.
Yeah, so Call Her Daddy is essentially only led now by the one girl out of a duo that started with Barstool Sports, and they wanted to set terms of the agreement, which is not the agreement, and so they got fired. And then she went ahead and took the entire thing forward, and now it's like a single girl show. Josh, correct me at any point if I'm wrong. And then the single girl show, and it's just like so ridiculous. It's like it's a very feminist podcast, and I was watching Steven Crowder because like I also like to watch both sides. So like I like to watch very conservative and very liberal at the same time to make sure I'm getting a well-rounded perspective of it. And when I'm watching that and he's explaining it, the previous show was like something about blowjobs and I don't even remember, but it's nonsense. Imagine the most nonsense girls podcast about being a slut and being free and about being oppressed, and that's Call Her Daddy. Okay, and so she chooses to go on that, and they are just hating on everything man wise because it is a very feminist podcast. Now, today, Kamala Harris on her second media tour, where does she go to? Howard Stern. Like, what the hell are we doing here? And Howard Stern is completely 180. Like, you guys remember back in the day with Howard Stern, how he would have strippers on there, he would have midgets, disabled people, he would do all types of bunch of ridiculous stuff. Well, now he's like reformed. And so this entire interview, I watched it or I listened to it on SiriusXM today. Dumbest 2 hours of my life, but it was just like a that type of moment session between the two of them, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like this guy who is standing this way. That's why I think, you know what, guys. I think the most important thing is identity. Being true to yourself, knowing yourself, and when you know and live yourself, good things happen to you. And I think that's really what we stand for. And if you don't get to that point, or you're not at that point yet of true identity, then you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, I'd say that, it's important to, as I say, right, in the Matrix, right, know thyself. So that way you can chart your own path. But for a lot of people are still out there trying to figure it out, there's a lot of great tools and resources. And again, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. Like, your politicians don't know you exist and they're not here to save you, right? You have to save yourself from your own situation, or you're in charge of making your own situation as best you can. So, that was, for a lot of guys, the space used to be that repository and place where they could find a lot of that positive tools and ideas and insights that they could then use to be very constructive to not only help force themselves into better people, but also be more better, productive, citizens of the world out there. And so, now, unfortunately, where things have kind of gone is that there's just a really royal negative sentiment. So, it feels more of like you go there for destruction rather than construction. So, that's the biggest thing that we're, I think very passionate about is making sure that, whatever tools or ideas or things you take, take the positive out of them and really use those tools for constructing the life that you want to really live and actualize for yourself. And there's a lot of really great tools in there. But I guess another good metaphor is that, manure, right, which is basically horse and cow crap, right? That's the stuff that's fertilizer for brand new growth. So even though we're in a bit of that phase right now, I think it'll be very exciting to see what grows out of it, and what new faces come about, but also seeing if perhaps some of the old guard has a little bit of a change of heart, and can come back for a very fantastic third act. So that's the part that keeps me kind of excited about where things are going to go.
Yeah, that's a great point, Josh, and I hope the same. Some of the guys that have kind of veered off path get back to what they started, and building tribes that make a community of men. Because the way you look at it, okay, this tribe over here, they're better at building, so that's what they do for the community. This tribe over here, they're better at hunting, so that's what they do for the community. And bring it back to unify and get back to the positive, because I know the great things it's done for me, since I found the space, first met you, Josh, a couple years ago. Even being an administrator, and that it still influences me and makes me want to be a better man. That's why I went out and got financial coaching certification, and I only want to keep bettering myself. So not only can I better myself, I can be a better influence and have better answers for people that questions. And being a part of a community like that makes you want to be a better self and better yourself and always improve. I mean, that's benefits that no money can buy, because the best investment we can ever make is in ourselves. And that's what I like, helping guys invest in themselves. And I'm the type of guy, my ego is not big enough. If you ask me something and I don't really know the best answer, I'm not going to blow smoke just so you keep listening to me. I'm going to point you in the right direction, or I'm going to find the person that can answer that for you the best. And I think that's what it's all about. That's how you work together.
This is a good point. Guys, I want to, we're getting around time here, and I got some final thoughts, but I want to go around and do some final thoughts with everybody else on this entire discussion, because obviously we touched on some things like ego and splintering of communities and people trying to be leaders when they weren't ready to be leaders. So I'm very curious. We'll start with you, Josh, on what your final thoughts are on this entire topic.
Yeah, I mean, my final thoughts on this topic are more. We saw just how the fracturing had a very deep impact, and it's kind of led things to kind of where they are. But without pain, you don't have growth. So I think that's a very good sort of growing pain to really help force everybody to say, okay, like we can do a little bit better. But overall, it's definitely very fun to take a little trip down memory lane and really document the entire evolution of the space. And for me, the thing, as I mentioned before, that I look forward to is just kind of seeing what positive things can really evolve out of this. That's the biggest thing I want to leave people with, is just that note of positivity. And so even if there was something that, was unfortunate as this that happened, the thing that I always look at is that, hey, if you just look the year before, it was one of the best years ever, where everyone really came together and was on the same page and did something pretty incredible. So I'm very, very confident that people can do something that incredible again, and can do something even more incredible in the future. So that's what keeps me motivated.
Good stuff. Kevin, final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts, man. Like I said when we first started the show, this has been a fun series. I think we've been going 6 or 7 weeks now. We started at the beginning of men coming together, all the way up to current. And so it's bittersweet that we end this series, but it is time to start getting on in real men's issues, doing shows about what we're all about, of where we can help, current events, that kind of stuff. So it's bittersweet, but it was necessary for us as men of now. So if you're just now tuning in, or you're new to our channel, take a look at back of some of our other shows from 7 weeks ago all the way up till now. We covered our experiences, our impression of where we've been, where we are, and where we want to go. And I am more than excited of where we're going to go. We all got really great intentions for this, and we're looking to all stay on the path of not only bettering ourselves, but bettering each other as well. And when you have a community, a tribe, a crew, a fraternity, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it makes it that much easier. Lone wolves don't eat as well as wolves in a pack. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. Because that's kind of where I wanted to wrap it up as well. So, with this entire thing, it really does just shows a couple different things. The first thing that popped into my head was rule number 1 of the 48 laws of power: never outshine the master. Now, for those who have not read that book, what that really means is, don't show up your boss. Like, don't do that. Don't disrespect in that way. You can show it passively and then get recognized, but don't embarrass. Pride is a very, very powerful feeling. There's a reason why there are the 7 deadly sins. And one of those sins is pride. I went to a Catholic high school, and I remember it was in my last years, I ended up becoming, I am not religious, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there to you guys. So don't think I'm going into like some biblical thing. But at the same time, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. So I was chosen to be a leader on the retreats that we would do. And the guy that was in charge of the retreats, he was very good at reading people. And he was very good at reading which deadly sin was the worst for somebody. Like, which one is the one you're going to struggle with the most? Mine is pride. And pride is hard. And then again, it comes back to never outshine the master. What occurred by pulling everybody together in not a cohesive way, even though everything that was meant by 21 Convention was fantastic, it ended up falling in on itself because there were too many strong egos fighting each other. So as we move forward, and we're at that point right now where everybody is trying to grab a piece of the pie, think about what you're trying to do. Think about where you're trying to go. If you want to, whatever the hell you want to do, I'm like trying to think about it because there's so many random things that like people have thrown out, what their goals are. Like I know we did at the beginning of the year a goals call with some of the members, and we're going to do something like that again going into the next year. Kind of a catch up and then a reset of what 2025 is going to look like. It's just other people exist. It's not just you. It's not just you. And I think that that's what gets lost. And that's what was so crazy with this entire 21 Convention thing is that essentially Rolo made some actions that then that maybe at the time were a little bit selfish, and then that stepped on somebody else's ego, which stepped on somebody else's ego, and it just became a domino effect. That's not what we're supposed to be. That's not how we work as men. So that's really why we wanted to cover this, to understand, okay, why are we in this type of position? Because I know even for myself, like thinking back, and that's why I really wanted to talk about Christian McQueen. And dude, it was crazy finding out that Josh even actually met him in person. He was one of my favorites back in the day, and it's frame on how you move forward in your life. And with all these different people and all of these moving parts, but then there were so many bad actors, and this space doesn't deserve bad actors anymore. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that this space doesn't have any bad actors anymore. But until next time, guys, appreciate your time. It's going to be interesting what we do next. I got to hold my tongue on a lot of different things. But thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Hey, I don't know. Hey. Peace out, guys.